maybe 5, isn't she? I can't remember
No,
now.
she's
Good,
going to.
good afternoon, everybody,
Okay.
and
Okay.
welcome to another broadcast from the Hindu Academy team. My name is Nishit Kochak. I'm here with Sita Lakhani. I'm here with Vijay Hirani, and we're waiting on Manish Pai to join us as usual. So, if you're new to these broadcasts, the topic of the day is usually based around something to do with Hinduism, and the format is we run for about 1 hour, and we usually start off with a focus video that helps us to pick a topic, and then we'll go through the video and we will then try and explore the topic around that video a little bit further. In the meanwhile, you would be watching us either on Facebook or YouTube, which would be on the Hindu Academy channels, and feel free to put in your questions in the comments area and I will pick them up and bring them to our panel of experts right here. So without any further delay, let's get started with today's video, which is around the topic of text torture. So what is that and what is the implication? Let's have a look.
Price even today.
What do you think of the use of media to undermine Hinduism?
Yes, you see, media is a very powerful tool. Okay, we all know it. Nowadays, I mean, for example, if I wanted to talk to 1,000 people in India, I have to travel to India, buy tickets and so on, and be accommodated and have to take care that I don't fall ill or get diarrhea and all that. But now I can talk to tens of thousands of people in India because of the media, social media especially. Because social media can enter a village, provided I produce 5-minute clips, video clips. Anybody in the village who can understand a bit of English can easily click that link and listen to me talking from London, from Eton here. So the media is a very powerful tool. It pervades the whole society, whole nation. It can reach the grassroots at the grassroots level. So media is a very powerful tool. So it can be used and misused. Like any tool you discover, you can use it or misuse it. And media at the moment, I'm telling you, is misused and is undermining Hinduism. I'll give you some examples. There is one individual, I won't name him, who comes on the media in India and in the world, the Western world as well, is on the Sky Channel every day, and his whole sole purpose is to undermine Hinduism. And the way he does it, very simple. He's very good at memorizing. So he's memorized chapter and verse quotes of the Hindu scriptures, so the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita. He's very good at memorizing. There are some people who are very good at memorizing chapter and verse quotes. So all he has done is he's perhaps mastered 100 chapter and verse quotes out of the Hindu scriptures, Vedas, Gitas, Bhagavad Gita, etc. And the purpose is solely to undermine Hinduism. So what he does is this: he takes out those verses out of context and then presents Hinduism in the context in which he prefers to use those texts. It's so easy to undermine any religion by just doing this. This is called text torturing, pulling out text out of context and presenting it as, this is the teaching of your, I'm quoting you Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 45. He goes, he knows our religion. It is said that in the Bhagavad Gita, or in the Vedas, or the Upanishad. So he'll pull out the text that suits him. Why? For the sole purpose of undermining the dignity and the breadth of vision of Hinduism. Why does he do that? Very simple. Because he can then also pull out texts from his own religion, again show that religion in a strong light and a positive light, or perhaps showing the look, it's similar to what you are teaching anyway, but we have the modern vision of what Hinduism is all about. In order to score points over Hinduism and promote his own religion, he's doing a marvelous job of text torturing. Now you see, somebody said, Mr. Lakhani, why don't you do the same to him? Pull out stuff from his text and show his religion in a very poor light. I say, no. We don't go to the lowest common denominator. We prefer to play at the highest common factor. So I'm simply making the Hindu public aware that there is one gentleman who is undermining the dignity and the breadth of vision of Hinduism by doing text torturing, just by memorizing. You see, because some religions are fixated on the book, so that's everything is written in the book. So if I can just show the book and chapter and verse quote, that's it. I don't need any further discussion or debate. It's written in your book, it's fixed. This is what you are teaching. Hindus say we are not fixated on the book. In fact, the meeting I had in Warwickshire, this is the biggest thing I said. I said, the worst form of idolatry is the idolatry of the book. It's already written up. Because however good the book is, it comes within context. If the context has changed, that those things are no longer relevant. So this gentleman does this marvelous job of destroying the dignity of Hinduism by doing regular And I've seen the audience, because this is shown on TV, hundreds of thousands of people there, lots of Hindus with their mouth open, listening to him, thinking, oh, he knows our chapter, he knows the Upanishad, oh, he's quoting us the Vedas. One guy came and said, Mr. Lakhani, if you want to learn the Vedas, learn it from this man. I thought, the last person I go to learn Vedas from. But you see, this is very damaging, very dangerous, because you see, people are gullible and say, he's quoting our chapter. But we are not fixated on the chapter and verse quotes. We are fixated on the idea of make sense of the religion that you were born in and understand it in a rational fashion without this text torturing. So have you noticed, when I've been teaching Eton, I've hardly ever used chapter and verse quotes at all. There's no need. Just present Hinduism in a format, in a sensible manner, in simple English, with the key features. They are in agreement with the ancient scriptures, but I don't need to pull them out and keep showing them to you, waving them in your face. Because we are not fixated on the book. We are not the religion of the book, as I would say. So this is, if you like, a serious problem that modern India faces. I'm hoping stuff like this will enter the Indian social media and stir up the people to rethink about this individual.
Amazing. It's like Jaybai was just right here in front of us. I can still recall his personality, where he will call it as it is, and he will not pull any punches if he sees something that is not right. So over to my expert panel to see if we can quickly have a discussion around this, and I will just keep an eye out on the social media channels for the comments that will be coming in. So Vijay Bhai, Sitaben, over to you. One thing that Jaybai pointed out very correctly is that these things are taken out of context. That was one thing I took away. The second thing is that we are not strictly by going by the book and the verses, right? As we said before, if you are trying to put that verses and the texts of past into today's modern society, they're not going to relate to that necessarily. So keeping those two things into mind, let's have a discussion on text torturing.
Yeah, Sita, can you start on that? Yeah.
So it's really important that we make sure we don't get we aren't gullible in the situation, and make sure that we understand our religion fully before we start listening to people like this who are trying to undermine Hinduism, because it's very easy for us to be swept away with all these chapter and verse quotes, and we're like, oh gosh, are we really promoting this? Are we really, such an awful religion? Whereas when you explain the situation and the context, it makes so much more sense. So it's really important to make sure we have a balanced approach and make sure we have a structured understanding of our religion, rather than listening to abstract quotes which are taken out of context and make our religion look terrible to the outside world. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant video. I think it sums up a lot of things that misconceptions we have about Hinduism, or at least the Indic faith. One thing I want to make really clear is that I think partly because, India is ruled by almost 1,000 years by, religions of the book, so to say. So I think Hindus have to be very careful not to get fixated by the book. Look, I love the Gita, I love the Upanishads, but when you read these books, do it in such a manner, think rationally. It's okay to disagree if you don't agree with something, because the thing is, you'll not be accused of blasphemy. Nobody's going to come after you. So think first and always do that, because remember, Hinduism per se is experiential religion. We have hundreds of books because anybody is allowed to write a book in Hinduism. There's nothing wrong with that, yes? I've been to India and people say to me, oh, Shastra kabhi galat nahi ho sakta. I don't agree with that. I think something we have picked up, we should really be careful. Look, if I ask you simple term like love, there are thousands and thousands of books on love, yet nobody can explain it because it's a subjective term. Similarly, for Hindus, the experience we have of the divine is far, far bigger than anything else. So books are a guide, and take them as such, no matter how good they are. And the lovely books are in Hinduism, but take them as a guide. The other thing also with Jaybai mentioned is very important, is that please don't step on other religions to promote yours. There is no need for Hindus to do that. Our breadth of vision is so vast, absolutely no need at all. It's only religions really fixated on a particular narrow book or narrow some idea would do that, because they have to produce something stuck in a rut for 2,000 years. The only way they can defend it is by showing the modern context or something else in a poor light. I mean, why would you play that game? Be magnanimous, rise above that, yes, and promote the idea of great eyes of Hinduism, the idea of that we are actually divine beings, and work from that idea. Don't lower yourself to any kind of level where you have to fight with these petty things. Yeah, worse quote. By the way, from what I hear, that only 1% of the Upanishads are left from all the vast of the verses we had. There's only a little collection we have left because there have been so many experiences in India, vast experiences. Only but a few have been noted down in books. So remember that. Don't take books. We are not book as we're not religion of the book. We are a divine religion where everybody is seen as divine, and work from that angle. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. So we've got Manish Pai who's joined us today as well. Manish Pai, welcome to today's broadcast. We are talking about the topic of text torturing and how things can be taken out of context and used in a way to undermine Hinduism itself. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, Nisit Bhai. So we have, many scriptures, and some people say our texts are mistranslated by Western scholars to show Hinduism in poor light. For example, some people say Manusmriti didn't have anything bad in it, but it was mistranslated and things added to show it in poor light. So what do you have to say about that, Vijay Bhai?
I can say is that what I can say is that, as Sita mentioned, that you could take some of these books, you take them in context of the space and time when they're written. To apply them today, it's wrong. And we have to take that into mind. And it's okay to think like Hindus. Don't necessarily feel, as I said again, we have picked up some nasty habits for the last 1,000 years because India has been conquered. And somehow we think that if something in the book, we must follow it, take it literally. Don't do that. As Jay Pai says, think rationally, think for yourself, right? So look, I don't know how the medieval society in India lived. I can't say. I mean, we have these books, right, from Manusmriti, but there are some verses, it's a fact. There are some verses which are actually very negative to his woman. There's one I know which says that when the daughter is young, she must live under her father. When she's married, under her husband, and when she grows old, she must live under her son. Look, the context of society today has changed so much, it doesn't apply today, yes? The way the state works, society works, it doesn't apply. So we have to move on. And luckily for Hinduism, we are very lucky because a lot of modern Hindu movements have got their own code of conduct. And I would even say that the modern law of the country will be the new kind of code of conduct to follow. So don't get fixated on that. That's important thing to remember. And remember, Hinduism has got vast collection of books. Manusmriti is but one of them. I think for some reason the West are so obsessed with certain books, and I think there's more Westerners who have a book of Manusmriti in their homes than Hindus do. I bet if you go any Hindu randomly, they won't even have a copy of that book. Yeah. Again, the same thing Jay Pai mentions. Step on others to promote yourself. I just feel pity for them. People who do this kind of type things. Sita?
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it basically. Like you say, we really shouldn't step on other people and put them down in order to raise ourselves up. We are already such a glorious and magnanimous religion. So why should we stoop to that level? As Dad was saying in the video, we want to focus on the highest common factor, the idea of the spirit. So let's just leave all this bickering and focus on the spirit.
Wonderful answer. Wonderful answer that Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai. One other book that is of very importance is Bhagavad Gita, and we have so many translations of that. And there is a focus on Dvaita, and there is a book scholars who interpret it in a Dvaita way. So how do we deal with that? And there are people who also mistranslate or take a verse and try to make it mean something else. How do we deal with this scenario? Sita Ben?
Yeah, so it's really important to make sure you choose a version, a translation, which is as close to the original as possible. And I think I've said it in previous, sessions like this, is, if you do have the time and the energy to learn Sanskrit yourself, and being able to read it in the actual language, there's something sort of magical about it. So if you are able to, then please do that. And the Bhagavad Gita is just the most sort of vast, magnanimous book of the Hindus, because it does focus on the idea of Dvait, the idea of focusing on God as Krishna and building relationship with him in order to achieve enlightenment. But it provides a variety of other different pathways as well. It also focuses on Advait. It talks about the nature of Atman and Brahman. And that's why even verses from the Bhagavad Gita, which talk about the eternal nature of the soul, are read during funerals to give people comfort that that person hasn't just disappeared. They are still there. It's just a matter of them changing their clothes. They are still there. You know, all the clothes that have sort of worn, the body's like worn clothes, which need to be changed. So it does give a lot of comfort. It gives a variety of different approaches of making spiritual progress, and the 4 yogas, the 4 pathways for, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Gnana Yoga, and Raja Yoga, all with different emphasis on Dvait as well as Advait. So that's the most sort of, condensed version of Hindu teachings, and hopefully every Hindu home has one.
Yeah, so all I can add is that, as Sita said, it's absolutely magnanimous books. It's one of the Prasthan Trayi, as people say, that is one of the 3 main books of Hinduism. That is the Gita, Upanishad, and the Brahma Sutra. So Gita is immensely special. Not only that, it actually makes the teachings of the Upanishads, which are kind of highly philosophical, more practical in our daily lives. It's an absolutely amazing book. But having said that, as Jai mentioned earlier, Hinduism is like a spiritual democracy, and people can interpret it in many different ways. And that's fine too. I mean, there's some which I know which I don't like, but that's okay, because Hinduism is like that. Yeah, it gives you so much freedom to think for yourself and choose for yourself. And that is the reason why we have so many bhashyas. We have the Shankar Bhashya by Shankar, the great Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. We have Ramanuja tradition one. And they all, because everybody's experiences are different. They come from different communities, different societies. So the way they relate to the divine will be very different. So of course, their commentary will be slightly different. So in that sense, you can read them. But again, as Sita said, the best is to read in the original format, and then of course decide for yourself. But use all these variations if you want. I mean, if some appeal to you, please use them to understand what the thoughts are. But again, it's okay. I love Ramanuja. Of course, I like his commentary, but I always try and think for myself as well when I read it. And that's the beauty of Hinduism. You don't have to be a zombie and follow a speaker who talks to millions of, yes, he's right. No, don't do that. Even no matter what book says, what comments, think for yourself. And it's okay to disagree, yes? And that's how you progress spiritually. Look, you're the greatest being in this world. You're the Atman, you're the divine. You should be your own master and work towards that goal. Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful answer, Vijay Bhai. So yes, we should be focused. So we got these 4 main yogas, and we should be focusing on one of them that suits us. Asa Satpathy is asked an interesting question in that regard. Is he saying that there are many Puranas and Darshanas to learn? It looks vast. Now, when 2 Hindus talk, it might appear that they talk very different philosophy. How to reconcile Hinduism? I'll put a different slide. Should Hindus just focus on one part and try to read a book related to that, rather than try to cover all the literature? And how should a Hindu proceed on this matter, Vijay Bhai?
Okay, all I can say is that leaving the Puranas on the side for the moment, the darshanas we have, I think the best to learn is to learn systematically. I mean, once you understand systematically, then it's not difficult. You don't have to go too deep. For example, we have, the 2 main groups. We have the Gnostic darshans and the Astic darshans. The Gnostics, obviously, people who don't accept the Vedas, like the Buddhists. And Buddhists has got 4 different main traditions. I can't remember them, but Vibhashik, Svatantric, and all this kind. And they also have Jain tradition and the Charvak tradition. Charvak are basically atheists who only believe in the idea of the body, yes? These are all since, what do you call the Gnostic tradition. But the Astic are the 6 others. We have Nyaya, Vaisheshik, we have Sankhya Darshan, Patanjali Yoga, then Mimamsa, and then Vedanta. What I would say is that there are some very good, very short topics on this in the internet. It's good to get a basic idea. Don't go too deep into it. It's very deep. But at least gives an idea of the breadth and the vastness of our traditions, right? And then you can say, okay, look, this appeals to me. Try and focus on that and study that in more detail. Of course, Vedanta is by far the most popular today. But don't forget, Vedanta also refers to the other darshanas as well while they expound their philosophy. So I won't go too deep into it, but I would say learn at the high levels to get an idea. Now, Puranas also are very old legendary. There's some very legend stories. Some are like quite mythical, but even some Puranas have some good moral values. But I would say that don't rush into everything in one go, but darshanas, learn in the little brief first, and then decide, okay, I want to explore this area, that area, and slowly, you'll kind of piece everything together. I mean, there are some things, of course, there's some opposing ideas. That's why I think Hinduism tends to be confusing sometimes. But if you look at all the darshanas, you see there's a very nice link to all of them. Different thoughts, but they all tie up. It's like a big family with different views, and sometimes, but they all still happily live together. That's what I would call it. Darshan is a nice big family with different views, but living happily together. Yeah, Sita Ben.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem very contradictory when you sort of compare different sort of approaches for making spiritual progress. Somebody, you know, who loves Krishna would sort of say, hey, what's this idea of Brahman? Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. So when you sort of compare pathways, they seem completely different. And really, the beauty of Hinduism is that it encourages us to experience spirituality for ourselves and become enlightened ourselves. And when you reach that point, you can actually see where all of these different pathways merge. And we've said this before, but the best sort of person, the best advocate for this understanding of Hinduism in, you know, from an experiential level is Sri Ramakrishna. He was able to show us that, yes, you can make, you know, you can become enlightened by thinking of God with form, God without form, in a variety of different ways. So really, it shows that all these different pathways, although they appear contradictory through words and through discussion, actually at the experiential level do reveal the same ultimate reality.
Wonderful answer that, Sita Ben. We take a question from a viewer, Adityan K and Sachu. They're both asking about idolatry. Now, Hindus are not idolaters. We worship the divine through the images called murti. So we are murti pujas. We are no idolaters. Please don't use this term. And the question from Adityan is idolatry forbidden in Vedas? As I said, let's talk about murti puja. Is murti puja forbidden? Vedas? This again comes from Zakir Naik school of thought, and he, I think, quotes a particular verse saying natasya pratima asti, and we shouldn't be doing murti puja. And Sachu was asked, did the people of Indus Valley civilization practice murti puja again, believe in the image of God? Sita Ben, how do you respond?
Yes, so again, you have to look at it in context rather than out of context. So, you know, with the idea of the Indus Valley civilization, that's where we actually find, you know, the earliest signs of thinking of God as being female is in the Indus Valley civilization. This idea of Shakti, the idea that the female is the one who gives life. So that's something to be revered, and that's like the ultimate reality. So that's a very valid pathway, and so is the pathway of, you know, thinking of it as the Vedas advocate, the idea of Atman and Brahman, the idea that the universe is essentially a manifestation of spirit, and it's a case of just looking inwards and finding who you truly are and finding what the universe truly is, which is something that really can't be put into words, but it's there. So it's the wonderful beauty of Hinduism is that you have to look at it in context, look at the situation, look at the people, the civilizations that you're dealing with, and sort of operate and provide a prescription which is best suited to them. I mean, for example, even within the same Hindu family, you find a variety of different approaches. For example, a grandmother would be very much drawn to the idea of doing murti puja, doing worship in the morning. That's very important to her. But to a grandchild, they might be like, this just doesn't seem relevant to me. I like to go out and do some good to the greater community. And that's their way of making spiritual progress. So even within the same family, you have apparently contradictory approaches, but we know through people like Sri Ramakrishna that they do lead to the same ultimate goal. Vijay Bhai?
So I think I think one thing to remember is that, as Sita said, take everything in context, because that is very important. I'm aware that in some places in the Vedas, especially the early Brahmanical schools, they do a lot of Agni, fire worship, and some they do all this. They don't use images. That's true as well. But also there are very many, of course, Hindus use images today. But I think, remember, they are murtis. These are actually pratimas which help us focus on the divine. I think the thing is that in the West, it was very common at one time, in the ancient times, where they used to believe that a stone had power, or a particular object had power, or a tree had power. Look, all these are objects to us, which are, they're not really, they don't have power in themselves. They represent the infinite so that our mind or our senses can focus on that. That's it. I mean, some people use pratiks. They use Om symbol. They use, maybe arti or a lamp. It is a pratima or a pratik. They both come from the word prati. Prati means going towards. But it is a pratima or a pratik. It still is a tool to help you to link to the infinite. And that's all there is to it, yes? So yeah, don't get carried too away or because the book says this. We are, as I repeat again, we do not follow a book blindly. We are an experientialist. Books are a guide which help us to on our spiritual journey. Please keep that in mind. Don't fall in this trap of the religions of the book, please. Yeah.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben Vijay Bhai. So again, just to emphasize the point, plus we got so many books. The reason is because they are all guides, and we don't say this book is it, and we just follow that to the letter. We have so many books, we have guide, but we are ourselves our own guide, and we need to take into account the context and everything. Sailaja K is asking, is celibacy important for salvation? Now again, salvation is a Christian term. We would say moksha is a different thing altogether. Is celibacy important for moksha, Vijay Bhai?
I know some people won't like the answer, but yes, it is, because ultimately all these things, not only celibacy, not only idea of celibacy, but idea of, Maya, getting desires, all kinds of desires. If you don't transfer your desires with money or attachment to anything, if you have desires, then of course you're not ready for moksha. That's just how things are, right? As we know, we have this 4 realms of Hindu life, which I think Sita explained very beautifully in the last few videos, that when you go through dharma, artha, kama, once you then actually go to moksha. So ultimately you have to get rid of your karmas and then move towards moksha. And the idea of the 4 ashrams as well kind of helps you. Okay, look, enough of this. Now I have to lead a celibate life. I have to focus on spirituality. So ultimately it ties you down. That's the key thing to remember. It's not only celibacy, all other things are part of that kind of idea that we have to, chapter 14 of chapter 18 of the Gita, renunciation. That's the key focus. You have to renounce lower things to achieve higher things. As simple as that. Yeah. Asita Ben?
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it amazingly. So yes, in order to make spiritual progress, you have to sort of disidentify yourself as being a body. And that's why it's very important to rise above that idea and sort of make spiritual progress by practicing celibacy. But you can only do it when you are ready. So, for example, monks, they practice celibacy because they feel ready for it. And it's one of those things that, if you sort of try and force yourself to become celibate, it's just not going to work. You're just going to be miserable. So it's better to just then get married and have a family. And then at the right point, you will sort of feel that desire to say, I want to make spiritual progress now. And it will come naturally to you. And that's why we have this wonderful system of the ashrams, which tell us, the different life stages. So it gives us all the opportunity to, yes, get married and have a family, but then to also then focus our lives on spirituality.
Amazing. So what I'd like to do is now just jump in. We are halfway through our broadcast for today. So I just thought I would just come in and share some of the resources for our viewers. We have a number of viewers who are new people to the channels today. And it's a timely reminder of the various resources that are available for you. So I'm just going to go and share my screen. So what you see here is the Hindu Academy website, which is hindu-academy.com. And one of the first things I'd like you to do is go here to this website, scan this code with your phone, and you will be taken to a page where you can submit your questions to us by video. Just make it a 1-minute video and it'll come to us automatically. On this website, we also have our free e-learning course on Hinduism. We have a number of viewers today who just discovered the Hindu Academy content. They're enjoying it so far, and I'd invite you to take part in this free e-learning course. It'll take you through a structured system of learning all about Hinduism in a modern context. And for those of you who would like to download the free ebooks that we have on the two topics, you can also do that here as well. So that was basically a quick public service announcement from my side. But before I hand it back to Manish Bhai, I think it's time, because we've got a number of new viewers to the channel or the broadcast today, maybe it would be an opportunistic time, a quick rapid fire of maybe the top 10 questions on Hinduism, the common ones. So we'll just do quick ones. If you could just give me very short answers and I'll get started. So question number 1, which a lot of people ask is Hinduism responsible for the caste system in India?
Okay, I have a go. No, because it's a cultural thing. I'll tell you why. It's actually practiced worldwide. Even 100 years ago in the UK, children were climbing chimneys, cleaning stuff for lower caste. And also, not only that, you'd be surprised, even the German philosopher, I think it was Gustav Jung, said that we have the nobles, yeah, the merchants, yeah, and then we have the serfs. And at the very top, we have the kind of the dukes or the knights, yeah, knights, sorry. We have the nobles, knights, merchants, and the serfs. So this division was not only in India. It's very convenient for the West to forget that actually only happened in India. Just go. I mean, history runs on a very vast time scale, right? So just to say that last 100 years, India they've been doing this for thousands of years as well. So it's not unique to them. Okay, there may be some books in India describing this, but that's just, again, Smriti books, and they're out of context and not valid today. Yeah.
Fantastic. So Sita, I'll give you this next one, which is, what are the major Hindu holidays?
Okay, so you have obviously Diwali, which celebrates the return of Ram to his kingdom. You have Holi, you have Navratri, and there's many others like Ram Navami, Janmashtami as well. And actually in our course, as a bit of an advert for our course, you learn about the reasons why we celebrate these festivals. So, you know, they show, following the significant life, the birth of a significant person. They also are a chance for communities to get together. They celebrate seasonal changes. So when you understand these things, these festivals make a great deal of sense.
Thank you so very much. Now, on the chats I see over the past few weeks, a lot of people get passionate about something we all know as yoga. And they feel that the West has sometimes taken, yoga away from us, and then sort of we learn about yoga back from the West when it comes back in. And so my question, Vijay Bhai, is this: how is Hinduism related to yoga?
Okay, so yoga comes in many forms, right? So the main thing to remember is that the true yoga, the Raj Yoga, is the Raj Yoga of meditation. It is true that you need Hatha Yoga to have a strong body, because you need a strong body to focus and meditate. These are the key two main yogas. Hatha Yoga to discipline your body so you can sit straight, and then do Patanjali Yoga, the Ashtanga Yoga. These are the main facets. But of course, over time, India has so many other yogas, Kundalini Yoga, and because in the West it's become popular, I know they've been trying to hijack it as well. Some Christian movements saying, no, actually it was practiced by Syrian monks and whatnot, right? So of course, when they get scared and they see this kind of digesting their religion, they're going to try and usurp it, right? But remember that we are the owners of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. That is a really old book. It's ours, right? Period. Yes, that's the main yoga. I can say that, yeah.
Superb. Sita, over to you for the next one. So a lot of people consider Jai Bhai as their guru. So the question is this: what is the role of gurus in Hinduism?
So the word guru comes from the Sanskrit root, which means to remove ignorance, somebody who is there to remove your ignorance. And it's somebody who acts as a guide for you. And in the context in which we are talking, acts as a spiritual guide. And the important thing is that we have to make sure within sort of, the Indic tradition, we always try and make sure we don't sort of become too focused just on that personality. The ultimate goal is to then make spiritual progress ourselves. So our gurus are there in order to be signposts, and we don't just hold on to the signpost in order to make spiritual progress. We have to then move forward and find it for ourselves.
Thank you very much, Vijay Bhai. So many of the mainstream religions often have like a weekly service that they require people to attend. Does Hinduism have any weekly services?
No, there is no specific day for Hinduism. Again, Hinduism is very individualistic. We don't like to collect everybody into a herd of a kind of group, herding people together. But generally, of course, it makes sense to go in the morning and the evening before you go to work, and after work when you finish. But there is no specific time as such. Of course, some communities get together and they find a convenient time when they're free. But it doesn't have to be a fixed day like a Friday or a Saturday. There is no specific rule like that in Hinduism.
Thank you, Sita. So a lot of people have a difficult time answering this particular question, and the question is: do Hindus worship idols?
Yeah, we've covered this before. So we don't like to worship idols at all. We don't worship a piece of marble or a piece of wood. We like to create finite forms in order to reach out to the infinite, because the idea of the infinite, the ultimate reality, is so difficult for our limited minds to grasp that we utilize these different forms of gods that we have in Hinduism in order to build a relationship of love and achieve that enlightenment. So we don't worship idols. We use these finite forms in order to reach out to the infinite.
Thank you, Sita. So Vijay, here's another interesting one. So this topic has been it has been a polarizing topic. So the question is this: are all Hindus vegetarian?
They don't have to be vegetarian. I'll be honest with you, because I know so many Hindus who live on the coastline of India have been eating fish for thousands of years. It is true that some forms of Hinduism encourage vegetarianism, like the Patanjali Yoga Sutra says you're vegetarian. But there is no fix that you have to be vegetarian in Hinduism. I think some of the Jain traditions really helped promote vegetarianism in India. But actually, I'll be honest with you, in the ancient times, people had struggled to eat food. I'll give you a very quick example. My grandfather was a farmer, and after every 3 harvests, 2 would fail. So he was struggling to feed himself, and he was a farmer. Can you imagine somebody who doesn't even own a farm? What does he do? So I think the thing is, there's no fiction as such. Although we encourage vegetarianism and we hope in the future even veganism becomes even better, but there's no fixed rule.
Fantastic. That is absolutely the correct answer I was looking for. Sita, here's the next question for you. So, what does Hinduism teach about karma and reincarnation?
Okay, so karma is one of those things which is easy to misunderstand. So the idea of the law of karma is the law of cause and effect on personal terms. And there are a variety of different factors affecting our everyday life all the time. So sometimes good things happen to us. Maybe it's because we've done some good things, but sometimes bad things happen to us as well. And that doesn't mean that we should beat ourselves up and say we must have done something bad in our past life and I just have to bear with it and not do anything. It's actually a variety, a whole host of other things which come into effect in order for this action or this result to happen. So we have to make sure we stand up and sort of defend ourselves and do everything we can to move forward rather than cry in a corner. So it's very important to be strong about these things. In terms of reincarnation as well, this is one of the key sort of Hindu beliefs, Hindu ideas, that life is not just a full stop, there's a comma and you carry on in a new body and a new life. And there's been a lot of research done recently sort of suggesting the possibility of reincarnation, but we have to obviously look at it with a very logical head and say, is it something possible or not? But this evidence does suggest the possibility of reincarnation.
All interesting topics to explore. Vijay, do we have an equivalent of the Bible in Hinduism? A religious text?
I think we have to, maybe not as the Bible, because they take it literally. They can't even challenge the word. If you think differently, then basically you are wrong. The book is right. We don't have that kind of book, but I would say the Gita by far is the most precious book for Hindus. In a sense, it's a very wonderful guide to help us understand the idea of Hinduism. So this is one of the most precious books. I think it's one of the easy ones to understand. But even then, the Upanishads, the Vedas are seen as Shruti. They are the highest teachings. But nevertheless, I would say Gita comes close in that sense. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the very last question I have for Sita is, do Hindus believe in God or gods?
Ah, that's a very difficult question because, you know, a lot of people think Hinduism has got many gods, but actually what we believe in is a variety of different ways of thinking about God. That's the important thing we have to highlight is that we don't have many gods, because how can they all be ultimate, essentially? So there's only one ultimate who is viewed in a variety of different ways, and we choose the pathway that suits us the most. We might like to think of God as a child, or as our friend, or as our mother, or as our father. And we've got such a variety in Hinduism. We are so lucky that we've got a variety of different ways of making spiritual progress by building a relationship of love with a particular form of God.
Thank you so very much, Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai. Folks, if you're watching this broadcast and you're enjoying the content, let me just tell you, these questions came out of the blue for my panelists. They have got no idea beforehand that I'm going to ask these questions, and you can see that they've answered the questions in a really sensible manner, and I hope that you can appreciate the effort that goes behind this sort of session to help everybody else understand about Hinduism very well. Manish Bhai, I'm now going to hand over back to you to carry on with the rest of the broadcast as I carry on the conversation online.
Thank you, Nishit Bhai. That was a great question answer, quick ones, top 10, wonderful stuff. We take the next question from Kevit, who is a newly discovered Hindu Academies and enjoying all our content. He's asking about Panchang. You know, when we want to do some specific religious ceremony, we always look at auspicious date and times. And he wanted to understand more about origin of Panchang. Vijay Bhai?
Okay, so the idea of Panchang is actually very old in Hinduism. It's linked to Jyotish. It's one of the, I think, 6 Vedangas, one of the arms of Veda. I'm not an expert on that, but Hindus believe that we are all united in spirit with nature, with the universe. We are all tied together, and that is a fact, right? But having said that, I think there's a lot of variations on how this Panchang is looked at, but it's used. So I think this is an idea to link the ancient times when people used to use this because the forces of nature were not in their control. So they had this need to look at Panchang to see what's the best time and date. I guess today many Hindus would not accept. They say, look, no, we believe in rational thinking, we use rational ideas, and that's fine too. I know that some old, like my mother really works on that, and I'm happy she does. I don't believe in it that much, but I do understand that it's part of ancient Indian tradition and it's one of the Vedic kind of arms of study. As I said, at the olden times, humans didn't have full control of all the forces and nature. So it's always made idea in that to link this to somehow link to the other events, link our own life, other events in the kind of in this kind of Panchang kind of method. But yes, it's not. You have to be careful. Don't get too stuck into that. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll get lost and you do things without thinking for yourself. And don't do that, please. Yeah, Sita.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful. Otherwise, you might sort of look at the horoscope charts for every little thing that you do. Oh, is this an auspicious time to go to the shops? Is this an auspicious time to meet my friends or whatever? So you have to make sure you don't get too caught up in it. A lot of people like to sort of look at these days and times when they're doing a big event like a wedding or moving house or whatever it is. But then again, it's not very easy to predict. We live in an international community now. It's not everyone is not just in India. So where do you calculate your timings from? Is it British summertime? Is it winter time? Are you in America? Are you in China? So it's very difficult to follow. So we shouldn't get too sort of caught up in it.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai. We take the next question from Yishwar Kerapadi. He's asked an interesting question. So we talked about it's not forbidden to eat meat, but he's asking, can you please advise on the right sattvic food to be eaten for energy? Sita Ben?
Oh, I'm not very good with a dietitian or anything, but I just suggest eating those foods which are, are healthy and are good for you. Obviously things like salads and fruits and healthy foods rather than heavier fried foods, for example, like chips and heavy carbohydrates and pasta and all of that. I'm not a sort of dietitian, so I can't really advise too much, but you have to obviously choose foods which are healthier as much as possible. Occasionally you might want a slice of cake and that's okay, but make sure you just have healthy foods overall. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think there's, Sita, you're absolutely right. I think you have to just think for yourself. But I think there's a very vast history of food in India. I mean, luckily India is such a lucky country because, I mean, half the world, half of India is arable, and we have got so many different weathers in India, and we have these rivers flowing down from Himalayas. So we have, spices, I mean, vegetables, pulses. We are immensely lucky. You don't see there's no other country in the world that has this kind of land, such beautiful land to grow anything. I mean, from Kutch, and I've been always been taught to eat mung dal, make strong, get strength. Yeah, that's kind of what I was taught. But yeah, I think sattvic food means that eat foods that are not too strong or too strong for you. I mean, it's simple like salad. I see this is salads, fruits, and for proteins, I get mung, dal, pulses. If you live on that kind of diet, I'm pretty sure you live very long, like our ancestors. They live like in the 90s because they all had this simple sattvic food. None of this too spicy or all this kind of other excess food. Just stick to basic pulses, fruits, nuts. I think you'll be safe. Yes. Yeah, Manish bhai.
Wonderful. So, staying with the food topic, Vijay bhai, when we look at, sometimes conversing with meat eaters, they say, where is your source of protein? Because that is the, what you get from meat. How do we get protein from in vegetarian food?
I think that's just a fallacy because I'll tell you what. I mean, my mother has grown up on a vegetarian diet. She eats a lot of ghee, and she's stronger than me. I can tell you, even now in her 70s, she's stronger than me. So thing is, if you eat right diets, okay, it's one thing to, if you're from a Western world, remember a meat diet, then it might be tricky because you really have to research foods. But people going in a vegetarian diet like my community, eating, beans, pulses, moong, right, all this stuff, chickpeas, chana, it's all built in. So it's just natural. It just comes naturally. And I wouldn't say that there is a kind of any impact on any kind of negative impact on it. Actually, it's a positive effect for us because actually we love, from what I know, we live longer. We don't have any other problems as such. So it's not true. There's vast number of pulses you can have to get your protein diet. If you're vegetarian, which I'm a vegan, but if you're vegetarian, then you can have dairy products as well to get your protein. So it's not true that the meat is the only source. That's absolutely not true.
Sita?
Yeah, there's not much more I can add really. We do have a lot of protein in our vegetarian food, all these pulses, beans we have. You just have to make sure you incorporate them in your everyday diet, I guess.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben Vijay bhai. So yes, just saying dals normally, urid dals and moong dals, these are rich in protein. So it's not like you have to eat meat for protein. You have many food that contains protein. Staying with food and drink, now moving to drink, is alcohol forbidden in Hinduism? What is a Hindu idea on drinking alcohol? Sita Ben?
Yes, so I mean, it's okay to drink a little bit in moderation. That's the guidance that we're given in the UK as well. But it's good to make sure we don't drink too much because then you kind of lose your sense of focus. You kind of forget where you are. You kind of have a hangover the next day. So all of these things are okay, but in moderation. And Hinduism is never sort of strict about these kinds of things in terms of, saying, no, you can't have this or you can't do that. So you can have a little bit in moderation, and it's, nice to have a drink with your friends, I guess, but all in moderation, and make sure you don't, lose your sense of self, essentially. Vijay bhai?
Yeah, it's alcohol is a very interesting thing because I always wondered how come that human beings can actually break down ethanol. If you have methanol or if you have propanol, you're dead, right? So it's very interesting. But actually in history, if you look at the fact that we could actually break down alcohol in our bodies, that means we could eat fruit much longer in rotten state in the ancient times. And that's our body now has got a state where we actually break down alcohol. It's very unique history if you look at the evolution of man. Interesting stuff. But also, I don't personally drink, but if you do drink, be careful you don't lose your senses and make sure you still focus when you have your. But yes, human bodies are designed to break down alcohol. I know there are variations in terms of which country you come from. I know some countries, they just turn different colors, they will drink little bit. So you have to hear what culture you come from as well. But I want to say that, if you go out with your friends, be careful. Always if you drink, then make sure you always focus on rational. I think there's a lot of government guidelines on how this works. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I can add on that. Yeah.
Wonderful answer, Sita Ben Vijay bhai. So Prasant Tripathi is asked, where can I buy a good English copy of the Vedas from? Because I've heard many are mistranslated. One source I would say is Ramakrishna Mission. They have good literature and they are generally very good and not mistranslated. Vijay Bhai, could you add to that?
I have the Ramakrishna Mission one as well. So I think the good thing about Ramakrishna Mission, which I like, is that they are not taking that much, although they are, I would say, a little bit on the advice side, but the translation doesn't do that, which is that's one thing I like about Ramakrishna Mission. Even though they have this, they will always translate as they see it. And that's the one I would recommend as well personally. Yeah.
Wonderful. Asa Satpathy is asked, when we talk about avatar, we generally talk about Ram and Krishna, but we don't talk about Shiva. Why is that, Sita-Ben?
So the idea of avatar is God coming down to earth to protect the good. And traditionally, that's always associated with Vishnu, because he comes down to earth as the 10 avatars, the Dash avatar, which includes Ram and Krishna and many others as well. We don't usually associate the idea of avatars with other deities like Brahma, because he's already created the universe, he's sort of done his job. And Shiva is sort of controversially associated as being the destructive force, but the devotees of Shiva like to think of him as the creator, preserver and destroyer, which is shown in the Nataraj image. So yes, that's the reason why avatars are usually linked with the idea of Vishnu rather than other sort of deities. Vijay Bhai?
I think what Sita said is correct. It's basically a Vaishnava tradition, the idea of avatars. I did talk to one Shaivite a while back, and he said that Shiva is everywhere, and is all pervasive all the time. Even I am Shiva, so he doesn't need to have any avatars. So there you go. There's no more to add on that. Yeah.
Right. Some people believe Hanuman was avatar of Shiva, and again, it's considered Swami Vivekananda was an avatar of Shiva. What do you have to say about that, Sita-Ben?
Yes, I mean, it's very possible. How are we to know, essentially? But if you sort of look at the nature of Shiva and you look at the nature of personalities like Hanuman and Swami Vivekananda, you think possibly it's true. I mean, they both have this idea of renunciation, developing a great deal of love for spirituality, religion, and focusing on, Ram as his ideal, and Vivekananda focused on Ramakrishna as his ideal. So there's a great deal of similarity. They're very sort of soft-hearted by nature. They sort of appear very hard, on the outside, very strong and very hard, but essentially on the inside they're very soft, like a lotus petal, essentially. So who knows? Who can say, really? Vijay Bhai?
Nothing more to add. All I can say is that Shiva Hum, Shiva Hum. We can all be Shiva if you want to. Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful answer, Vijay Bhai. However, with recent COVID situation in India, we have big problem in India, and many people are attending funerals, and there are many people dying. And when we look at that, we have these ceremonies for Antyeshti, Sanskar, and then 12-day ceremony. And people do read Bhagavad Gita in that time. Could you please elaborate on that, Vijay Bhai?
So I think the Bhagavad Gita is very unique again, because I've seen that in many times when I go after somebody's passed away, and after the Antim Kriya ceremony or Antyeshti ceremony, they tend to use the Gita, because Gita actually kind of gives you a lot of comfort. And Sita mentioned earlier that saying that the idea that you are not the body, that you have actually moved on, yes, and that is something to get our loved ones to understand, and gives them tremendous solace. And look, don't worry, the soul has transmigrated. He'll go to a happier place. So please don't worry too much. Just pray for him so he succeeds in his journey. So it's a very, very powerful book to give you kind of solace. Yeah, that's the main thing about the Gita. That's why it's very special. And I think pretty much everywhere I've been, I always see the Gita being read, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Sita-Ben.
Yeah, there's not much more I can add. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about Hindu philosophy, is that we believe that the soul is eternal, and we are going to keep existing. It's not like we're completely snuffed out like people who are atheists say that, you know, you just live your life and then you're completely snuffed out, you don't exist anymore. Hinduism gives us that comfort that that person does continue, they continue on their spiritual journey. And although it's a very painful process, that's just the nature of the universe, and we have to live with the pain and suffering of that.
Well, I think it's almost an hour into the broadcast today, so we will now just start wrapping this up. Thank you all very much for joining in the conversation today, either on Facebook or on YouTube. I'm very happy to see all the new people who've just recently discovered our content. Please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have over 3,000 videos, many of them neatly organized into playlists that you can enjoy and learn and explore about Hinduism from the comfort of your chair at home. So like Manish Bhai said, you know, the situation in India is quite dire at the moment, and we just like to extend our sort of thoughts and prayers to everybody around the world, not only in India, who is battling with this issue of coronavirus. And we pray and we hope that we are able to overcome this in a timely manner so that we can all move on. And we know that better days are going to be coming ahead. Now, with every broadcast, I'd like to end with a quote from Swami Vivekananda. And I'd like to just share the quote of today, which is this one here on my screen. We are what our thoughts have made us. So take care about what you think. Words are secondary, thoughts live and they travel far. And the reason I have chosen that quote is because everywhere around us, we may be listening in to messages of, you know, doom and gloom, and that sort of tends to bring us down. But I would like to encourage you that rise above all of that, like a lily on a muddy river, but you're untouched by the muddy river. So try and be more positive, focus on the good things around you, and we look forward to seeing you next week at the same time, 2 o'clock in UK. I'll just bring my team in, and we'll wish you all a great week ahead, and we'll see you next week.